So after we finished steaming out the dents, I went back through and sanded out the entire stock again using 100 grit sandpaper, that cloth back sandpaper that I mentioned a few videos back. This is all nice and clean and looks really good. It's really ready for final sanding. But what I had to do is, because I removed a little bit of material from the sides of the stock, not a lot, I reinstalled the pad. And then when I do my final sanding, I need to use, I'm going to go back with this 100 grit and I'm going to final shape the pad to the wood. And there's like I just mentioned, there's maybe 1 or 2 thousandths of pad that I need to take off. So we're going to do that. Following that, we're going to do 2 additional grits of sandpaper. The first we're going to use is a 180 grit paperback sandpaper. We'll do that the entire length of the stock, and then finally we're going to go back and we're going to finish it with a 220 grit sandpaper. With walnut, there's little reason to go any finer than 220. In fact, some people might argue that 180 is adequate. I like to go to the 220, mostly because when I add my coloring and my finish, because I'm not adding stain, the 220 gives a little bit finer finish when it's all done for me. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to finish it with the 220, then we're going to go back and add the color, and then finally at the end we'll add the multiple coats of finish. All right. When you're sanding off from the back of the stock, you always want to sand from the flattest side outward. That way the bulk of your block, or the majority of your block, is sitting on solid wood. You never want to sand from the end, so you never want to stand when you're finishing on this end, because there's always the risk that you're going to lower the sanding block and then dub off the edge. So when we do this, when we're trying to create sort of perfect lines or nice lines, we want those lines to be as straight as possible. So if you're going to sand a pad to a stock, always come from the back or come from the inner side of the stock. Again, that way you're not going to roll it off. You also want to realize that the pad, that plastic, is harder than the wood. So by definition, the wood is going to sand quicker than the pad. So concentrating more pressure at the plastic is going to help avoiding any kind of a dip between the plastic and the wood. And I just keep checking that the fit is even. Okay, that's good. Nothing marks an amateur more than to look at a gun stock from top to bottom and literally seeing the pad dubbed off or dubbed in. You're always wanting to keep all of your lines as straight as you can. Unless that curve is intentional, unless it's built into the style of the design. There's just a little bit too much pad left over. Pull it all off with that sandpaper. But again, I'm using the wood as my guide to keep those tapers straight. One thing you want to keep in mind when you're sanding on curved surfaces is you always want to keep the sanding block in motion. Now I know I've mentioned a couple times that we always trying to avoid flat spots. If you stay in one location too long, then you begin to build those flat spots, and we don't want to do that. And finally, we go to the soft, curvy stick, or bendable stick. Again, coming right back up onto that main stock, using its taper as your guide. Close enough, done. All right. So we're going to go to the 180 paper at this point, and generally what I like to use is about just enough paper to wrap it around the stick to hold on to it and keep the paper in that wrap condition. Always sanding with the grain. Always keeping the sandpaper in motion as you work around that curve. And then I like to do my finish sanding, or my finishing of each grit, using my hands. So put it on my fingers and I clamp it with my little pinky. I'm sure there's 100 ways to do this. Because my hands are soft, my hands are going to actually form that curve better than even my bendy stick. So then we're really good. All right. So enough talk. Let's get this thing sanded. .220 grit, same thing, different. So I mentioned in an earlier video about the light lines, the shadow lines, the body lines, the style lines, whatever you want to term them, and everybody has a different term for it. So every gun stock well made has those body lines or style lines, and in this case Ruger built their style lines in right here. And now that I'm down to the 220, or the final sandpaper, this is when I really want to spend some time really focusing on those lines and making them as sharp as I can. And why I call them shadow lines is quite literally when you put light on them, they create these lines. And I don't know if the camera can pick those up or not, but you can see that shadow from the light to the shadow, and that's a very crisp line. Now, depending on how you do this stylistically, sometimes you want it to be very sharp and crisp, and sometimes you want it to be somewhat subtle or soft. In this case, Ruger designed those as a crisp line, and I'm going to try and repeat that or maintain that as within reason. But all right, anyway, style lines. You want to mix this stuff up pretty well. You want it to become a single finish. You don't want it to layer itself off. We have the Ruger 44 Carbine International gun stock all refinished. It's ready to go back to the customer. Before I do that, if you stick around to the very end of the video, I'm going to do a reveal. But what I want to do is I've gone in and gotten one of my carbines from my archives, and I'm going to take the barrel and action out of this carbine, install it into this gun stock temporarily so you can get a kind of a sense of what these things look like all assembled, because I don't have the whole gun here. So we're going to do that. Now, for any of you who are interested in how I do the entire finishing process, come on over to Patreon. This is going to be a Patreon exclusive set of videos. Head on over for $5 a month. Over the next month, I have 2 or 3 videos that I want to put up in a series that describes how I do my base coats, how I do my color coats, and then how I do my finish coats. So all of that's coming up on Patreon over the next several weeks. So head on over there and consider signing up. Sign up for 1 month. If you get what you want out of it, you can unsign at the end of that. But I would really appreciate it if all of you sign up and stick around. It helps support the channel. Next time we come back doing a firearms video, it'll be on the Ithaca shotgun. At that point, we're going to put the side panels on this 1905 side-by-side. So if you enjoyed it, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate that. It helps grow the channel. Make a comment. Always appreciate the comments. Again, the algorithms really like that kind of thing. It helps, again, grow that channel. We appreciate you guys. Stick around for that reveal, and I'll see you in the next one.